I'm Dr. Deb Butler, and you are listening to Thinner Peace and Menopause and Beyond. This is episode number 293. Welcome to Thinner Peace and Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. If you're a woman and you're smart and you're successful and you've been struggling with weight your whole life, and now menopause is making it harder than ever, and you are ready to make this the last time you ever have to go on a diet again, then this podcast is for you. Stay tuned. Hello, all my dear friends all over the world. How are you today? It's a sparkling day in the Midwest, windy. The trees are brilliant in color, and I just don't think I've seen a prettier day yet and then have enjoyed it as much. And I hope wherever you are, you're doing the same thing no matter what. But you know what? Winter's coming. And so is Thanksgiving. So I thought what I could do today is talk to you about something, what I'm noticing in this group that I'm doing right now. We just did the second class. And the concept that I introduced is the emotional hunger scale. And I do believe that the more you can understand how the emotional hunger scale works, the better you will understand urges, and the more you will understand how to handle discomfort in your body when you want something that you wish you didn't want. Like, for instance, eating something that you wish you weren't eating and you see yourself doing it anyway. Some people call it self-sabotage. I call it a way of rewarding yourself but telling you it's bad. But whatever you call it, in the end, I want to teach you how to handle it. And the way my thinner process works is that I teach you two very specific tools. One is the physical hunger scale, and one is the emotional hunger scale. And I know if you've been listening to me for a while, you've heard me talk about this many, many times. But I understand when it comes to this emotional hunger scale that the more I talk about it and the different ways that I talk about it, the better chance I have of getting the point across to you where you will actually let it soak into your brain and into your body. So I'm going to explain to you how I use the emotional hunger scale and how I taught it in my last class, because I have a few spins on it, a few new tweaks that I think help people understand it better. So if you're just starting to listen to me and you don't have my companion book that goes with this podcast, I highly suggest you go to drdebbutler.com/change, and you can get this 50-page book where a lot of the tools that I teach in the podcast, I have worksheets in this book. So if you do have the book, or you're going to go get the book, on page 6 is the emotional hunger scale. And I always teach the physical hunger scale too. So just to clarify, the physical hunger scale is a scale that you look at that goes from a -10 to a +10. And we are looking to start eating at a -2, which is the whisper of hunger, and a +2, which is the whisper of fullness. I've said this numerous times. I can't tell you how important this first step is. So if I'm starting with a client, if I'm starting with a new group, this is maybe the second or third concept that I always introduce once you understand why you're doing the work, which is what I call your compelling reason. And I talked to you a little bit about that last week. And really what I'm doing is kind of following along with my group right now, following along with the process that I use with anybody that I'm working with and teaching you some of it. Even though I can't actually coach you and get in your head, I can tell you the tweaks that I'm making that might make it easier for you if you never work with me. So we have this physical hunger scale. You can look at it in the companion book. You can see that it goes from a -10 to a +10, and that we're looking to start at a -2, stop at a +2, which really all it tells you is there's a lot of room to wait to eat, and there's a lot more room to fill up to eat. So, what is full? What is hungry? We are redefining that by giving you a chart, something to look at in your head, and then connect it to how it feels in your body. Because basically, we are wired to eat when we're not starving and to stop eating when we're not stuffed. We really are wired that way. You can see it with little kids, how much they'll eat or how much they won't eat. And it can just depend on so many different things during the day, right? What basically they're dictated by their body. And that's what I want for you because you were made that way, you were wired that way. And the only reason you can't do that anymore is because the connection has been broken, because somewhere along the line you started using outside sources to tell you when to eat, what to eat, how to eat. Those are called diets. And there's really nothing wrong with somebody telling you what to eat or telling you what's healthy for you or what's not healthy for you. I think that can be very, very helpful. It's kind of educating your mind, but you have to be connected to your body so your body can tell you that works for me, or your body can tell you that's enough for me, because no outside source can do that for you. And I think if you're hitting the 50-year mark, because most of the women that I work with are coming in around the perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal time, where you've been on a diet your whole life and menopause is making it harder than ever, the struggle, the whole thing, and you're ready to make this the last time. And the way that you do that is with this tool, the Physical Hunger Scale #1. Okay, so let's assume that you understand the Physical Hunger Scale. Maybe you've been listening for a while, maybe not, but you kind of get this Physical Hunger Scale. The only way you're going to get it more is to practice it more. And the only way to practice it more is to actually use the food journals that I have created that are in this book that you need to download for free so you can see what I'm talking about. So you always start with the 1 week or 2 weeks of just noting your physical hunger. We don't do anything with emotions in the beginning. But let's say you have done that. The people that I'm working with right now, let's just say some of my new individual clients that I'm working with, they're on week 2, week 3. Let me tell you how I would teach this next step as if you were one of my clients. I'm going to teach it to you, tweak it to you the way I see it now compared to the way I saw it a year ago, based on the problems people had with it and the questions they still have on it. So on page 6 in my companion book, you can see a graph or a chart of what the emotional hunger scale looks like. Now, the emotional hunger scale looks similar to the physical hunger scale in that it goes from a -10 to a +10. But here, a +10 is the best, most favorable emotions that you can feel at the highest, and a -10 are the lowest, most uncomfortable emotions that you can have at the strongest, -10. And 0 is neutral, where you're not feeling anything. Now, most of you know that you eat for emotions. I totally get that. But before you can look at that, you first have to see if you can eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. That's why you have to start with the physical hunger scale first. So I am going to assume at this point you now have a physical feeling for what -2s and +2s feel like. You can see when you go over a +2. You can see when you go way under a -2. You have an awareness of what's going on with you now, and you're starting to do food journals, writing the physical hunger scale, just naming how hungry and how full. Okay, so now this next step is this emotional hunger scale and looking at how you feel from a -10 to a +10. But this is what I want to tell you about some of the caveats about how you use this emotional hunger scale. First of all, I want to tell you what you don't do is you don't have to name an emotion every single time you sit down to eat. If you find yourself eating nutritious food or a fuel meal and you're eating between the twos, where your emotional landscape is not that important to me or to you, because you're physically connected and you're physically honoring your body. So you're good. Move on. But let's say the next entry that I see in a food journal, which I see all the time, I'll give you an example, is somebody sends me in a food journal and they're telling me what they're eating. They're telling me the time that they ate. And then what they say is they ate at a -2 in the physical hunger scale, but they stopped at a +5. Now, when you see a +5 in the physical hunger scale, and you know that what you're working on is stopping at a +2, because that's when the body feels satisfied, but it's also very light. It could go for a walk. It doesn't feel like going to sleep. You start noticing what these +2s feel like. And so when you put a +5, then you and I both know that you've gone beyond that. Now, this is where the emotional hunger scale is important. This is the time when you use what we call the EHS, which is the emotional hunger scale, and it's already on the food journal next to the physical hunger scale, but you want to start using a number for that. Now, let me tell you the guidelines for these numbers. First of all, it's not that important that you name the emotion, happy, sad, mad, glad. A lot of times people don't know what it is they're feeling. But this is what most people do know: how strong or how uncomfortable they feel in their body when they're eating when they're not hungry. But they have to think about it. So for instance, if you go to a +5 and you don't ask yourself what happened, you probably won't know. But if I'm coaching you, or if you are coaching yourself, then when you know you're beyond a +2, the question that you ask yourself is, why did you keep eating? Now, this why of why you kept eating will help you connect to this emotional hunger scale number. We're only concerned on food journals with negative emotions because negative emotions are what fuel emotional eating. Positive emotions do not fuel emotional eating, and I'll explain that later. But for now, no, you're only concerned with the negative emotions and how strong they are when it comes to number one, if you're overeating, going beyond a +2, and also what you do with joy food and joy eats. So a joy eat basically is eating a food that's non-nutritious, but you enjoy it bite by bite and you stop the minute that you're done. When you do it like that and you call it a joy food, there shouldn't be any emotional hunger because we don't want to eat a joy food to fill negative emotion. Now, I want you to be very clear about this. That's why you have to be very careful with joy eats, because I'm telling you, you can eat whatever you want, but you don't use a non-nutritious food to make a negative emotion feel better. If you're doing that, that negative emotional hunger scale is very important to look at. Just as much as if you are eating nutritious food and you go beyond a +2, that's negative emotion also. And there's two different ways to look at it and how to ask about it. So I'm going to tell you how to pay attention to this. So let's say that you ate to a +5. The question that I would be coaching you on, the first thing I would say is why? Now, here's something that somebody just said in a group with me a couple days ago, because they ate beyond a +2. And it was fuel food. It was good food for them. And a lot of people get tripped up with eating healthy food and eating beyond the physical hunger scale, eating beyond a +2. See, because that actually is negative emotion that you want to look at. So for her, what she said, it was really good, healthy food. It was delicious. I was enjoying time with my husband, and it was fun. Now, that sounds happy, happy, joy, joy, right? Like, well, that shouldn't be negative emotion. But this is the thing. Her body told her to stop. The +2 is stop. If you're still eating, what is driving you is not positive. There is something going on in your mind-body connection where you have to kind of cross the line. And when you cross the line, basically your body is saying, stop. I'm done. And your mind says, be quiet, it's delicious. Or be quiet, this is fun. Or be quiet, this is healthy, it doesn't matter. That creates negative emotion. It creates an urge to want to continue eating. Urges are considered negative emotion. So here you are, as she was having fun. I mean, she thought when she looked at her emotions, she says, I'm in the plus numbers. You can be having a fun time on the outside, but on the inside, there's a mind-body connection going on. And when the body says stop and the mind goes through that +2, that's not going to feel good. And the only way you're really going to know how bad it feels is to stop at a +2. You'll see how strong the urge is to want to continue, either because it's so much fun, because your brain has conjured up this thought that we eat for fun, we eat for connection, or we can eat whatever we want, however much we want, if it's healthy. That's going against the mind-body connection. It becomes negative emotional hunger. And you can look at the negative emotional hunger scale as a hole in the body, just like a hole in the body for filling physical hunger. Like when you're at a -2, it's a hole or it's an opening in the belly to fill up. Emotions create holes in the body too. They feel different, but sometimes it can be confused as feeling like physical hunger. So I see a lot of people when they're not really hungry confuse emotional hunger, boredom, restlessness. That could be actually a -4 or a -5 emotional hunger. And the physical hunger itself could be a +1. And the mind and body could conjure up this idea that, oh, we're hungry because I feel that emotional hunger. And it's kind of in the same vicinity. I don't know if that makes sense, but I want you to really think about emotional hunger. And this is how I talk to my clients, as an emotional hole of negative vibration that's in your body that your brain has equated with filling up with food as a way to take care of the negative emotion. So this week, what I want you to be concentrating on is this negative emotion versus the physical hunger scale. Anytime you're eating between the 2s, your emotional hunger scale is not that important. Anytime you're going beyond a +2, you want to see what could have been going on that would lead me to bypass my body. And I'm telling you, it's negative emotion. It's a hole. It's in your body. It's a negative vibration. And your brain is going to tell you what we do with that is we fill it with food. And many times my clients mix up emotional hunger and physical hunger. And what they actually find is the physical hunger was a +2, but the emotional hunger was a -5. And the -5 is what they were filling up with extra food, either because it was so delicious they didn't want to stop, or just like my client said, it was so much fun that she wanted to continue eating with her husband as part of the fun, even though her body was saying, you're at a +2, stop. So that's the next set of training, is knowing when that emotional hunger is there and how big the hole is. So here's a little trick I want to tell you that I would really like you to use for the following week. And it's this: the bigger the hole, the longer it's been there and the harder it is. The smaller the hole, the less time it's been there and it doesn't have as much pull on you. So a -3 in emotional hunger is much easier to handle than a -7 in emotional hunger. So if you're looking at your food journals and you're starting to look at emotional hunger, when you see the lower negative numbers, those are the ones you want to look at first. They're not as strong. They're going to be easier for you to kind of process, feel, allow, and let go, and know what the thoughts are that created the urge to want to eat, that created the emotion, the hole to want to eat. You start with the small ones and you work your way up. And in the end, I think it's always important too that if you notice in your food journal that you ate between the twos on a certain day, but you knew that you were really stressed, so you knew that your emotion was pretty negative, sometimes it's really good to note that, just because it's like you give yourself a pat on the back for having strong negative emotion and not eating it. It's like, wow, I can do this. So that's what I want you to do for this week. That's what my groups are doing this week, is they're all working on this emotional hunger, looking at how big the holes are, comparing it to the physical hunger scale, and writing both things down in your food journal. That's your work for this week. You're going to become a detective on what's going on with you by looking at numbers. And I will tell you, as a coach, what I can glean from food journals as my clients start getting these numbers. It's amazing. You can do the exact same thing. Work it this week. Look for those negative emotional holes. When they're weaker, try to feel them without eating them. As you get stronger and your brain gets stronger, you go for the bigger ones. And it will get easier too, because you know you can do it. You start recognizing it. All right, that's what I got for you this week. Everybody's doing it this week. My individual clients who started in the last couple weeks, my group, they're in their second and third week. Any of you who are in your second or third week of working on this, it's a perfect time. And if you're somebody who's never done any of this, I gave you some really good pointers on how you start this work, how you start this process. This is my thinner peace process. And really what it allows you to do is have a mind-body connection and also a belief and trust in yourself that you can eat whatever you want and that you can always trust yourself to stop. That's really what I want for you. And I want it for you this holiday season. Okay. So no matter where you go, no matter who you're with, please, please, please be very, very kind to yourself. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye. If you're loving my podcast and you would like some more information to be able to follow along with, then please go to drdebbutler.com/change, and you can get a free copy of my companion book that goes with this podcast that I refer to in many different episodes. That is drdebbutler.com/change, CHANGE.